In the Chen family, birth order was destiny. Marcus was born first. That made him heir to everything. The family business, the real estate portfolio, the respect, the authority, the future. I was born second. That made me supportive. Marcus will run the business someday, Dad would say at family dinners. Jordan will help him. Not Jordan will be his partner. Not Jordan will co-manage. Help him. Like I was an assistant to my own brother. Marcus embraced his role with enthusiasm. He graduated from UT Austin with a business degree. He joined Chen Import and Distribution immediately after graduation. He wore expensive suits. He drove a BMW. He talked about his future company at every opportunity. I took a different path. I went to community college for 2 years studying computer science. Then I started working for a small software development firm making $52,000 a year. I wore jeans to work. I drove a 10-year-old Toyota. I lived in a modest apartment in North Dallas. Jordan's doing fine, Mom would tell relatives, her voice carefully neutral. Not everyone needs to be in business. The subtext was clear. Marcus was the success. I was the acceptable alternative. But there was one person in the Chen family who saw things differently. My grandfather, Li Wei Chen. Grandpa Li Wei had immigrated to Texas from Taiwan in 1971 with $800 and a wife who was 6 months pregnant. He worked 3 jobs: restaurant dishwasher during the day, warehouse loader at night, and weekend janitor. By 1975, he'd saved enough to buy a small import shop in Houston. By 1982, Chen Import and Distribution was bringing in $2 million annually. By 1995, the company generated $15 million yearly and employed 73 people. But Grandpa's real wealth wasn't the business. It was real estate. Starting in 1979, he'd purchased properties across Texas whenever he had extra capital. A duplex in Austin. A small apartment building in Houston. A commercial property in San Antonio. A warehouse in Dallas. By 2015, Grandpa owned 8 properties. 1. Chen Import and Distribution Headquarters and Warehouse, Dallas. 2. 4-unit apartment building, Austin. 3. 6-unit apartment building, Houston. 4. Commercial retail complex, San Antonio. 5. Duplex, Fort Worth. 6. 3-bedroom rental house, Austin. 7. Office building, Houston. 8. Industrial warehouse, Dallas. Total value in 2018, $4.7 million. All paid off. All generating income. Real estate is how immigrants build dynasties, Grandpa would say. Business can fail. Real estate endures. He'd started teaching me about property management when I was 16. Not Marcus. Me. Every Saturday morning from age 16 to 24, I met Grandpa at his office. Not the fancy executive office where Dad and Marcus worked. Grandpa's personal office in the back of the warehouse, where he still kept the original metal desk from 1975. Marcus understands business, Grandpa told me when I was 17. Sales, marketing, operations. Your father trained him well. But Marcus doesn't understand wealth. What's the difference? Business is income. Wealth is assets, Grandpa said, tapping the property ledger on his desk. Income stops when you stop working. Assets work while you sleep. He taught me how to read property tax records, how to evaluate cash flow, how to calculate cap rates and net operating income, how to spot undervalued properties. Why are you teaching me this and not Marcus? I asked when I was 19. Grandpa's eyes were sharp. Because Marcus thinks being eldest means he deserves everything. You understand that nothing is deserved. Everything is earned. By the time I was 22, I understood Grandpa's portfolio better than anyone, including my father. I knew that property number 2 in Austin needed a new roof but was otherwise solid. I knew that property number 3 in Houston was underperforming because the property manager was lazy. I knew that property number 7 could be renovated and leased for 40% more than current rent. I knew the business generated $18 million annually but had thin margins and increasing competition. I knew the real wealth was the real estate, not the import company. And I knew Marcus had no idea about any of it. Marcus assumed he'd inherit everything. Why wouldn't he? He was the eldest son. He worked at the family business. He showed up at every company event. He kissed up to every important client. When Dad retires, I'm taking over as CEO, Marcus announced at Thanksgiving 2016. He was 28. I was 26. That's wonderful, Aunt Linda said. And eventually when Grandpa. Marcus paused respectfully. When the time comes, the business and properties will transfer to me as eldest son. That's how our family has always done it. Mom nodded. Dad smiled. My aunts and uncles murmured approval. I said nothing, because I'd had a conversation with Grandpa 3 months earlier that no one else knew about. In March 2018, Grandpa called me to his attorney's office in downtown Dallas. Lawrence Kim was a second-generation Korean-American attorney who'd been handling Grandpa's legal matters for 30 years. His office was in a modest building, no fancy corporate tower. Sit down, Jordan, Grandpa said. I sat. Mr. Kim slid documents across his desk. Your grandfather is establishing a trust for his real estate holdings. The Chen Family Property Trust. All 8 properties, Grandpa said. Transferring immediately to the trust. You'll be the sole trustee and beneficiary. I stared at him. Grandpa, I can't. Marcus is. Marcus is what? Grandpa asked sharply. Eldest? That means nothing. Marcus has been working at Chen Import for 6 years. Do you know what he's learned? Business operations. He's learned how to take clients to expensive lunches and talk about strategic synergies, Grandpa interrupted. He doesn't understand margins. He doesn't track expenses. He thinks revenue and profit are the same thing. Dad's teaching him. Your father is teaching him to run a business that's slowly dying, Grandpa said bluntly. Import/distribution is being disrupted by Amazon and direct-to-consumer sales. In 10 years, Chen Import might not exist. But these 8 properties, they'll still be here. Still generating income. Still appreciating. Mr. Kim explained the structure. The 8 properties would transfer to an irrevocable trust. All deeds would be recorded with the appropriate county offices. I would become trustee with full control. But what about the will? I asked. What about the business? The will leaves Chen Import and Distribution to your father, Grandpa said. And when your father dies, it goes to Marcus as he expects. The business is worth maybe $3 million at current valuation. Let Marcus have it. And the properties? The properties are already yours, Grandpa said. As of today, the trust is irrevocable. I can't change it even if I want to. Marcus will never know until I'm gone and it's too late. Why not tell everyone now? Grandpa's expression was firm. Because Marcus will fight it. Your father will try to convince me to change it. Your mother will cry about fairness. I don't have the energy for that battle, Jordan. Better to let them assume what they want to assume. Then when I'm gone, the truth is already established law. My hands shook as I signed the documents. On March 22, 2018, 8 properties transferred to the Chen Family Property Trust. Total value, $4.7 million. All 8 deeds were recorded with their respective counties. Binding. Irrevocable. And I told absolutely no one. For the next 5 years I lived a double life. Publicly I was Jordan Chen, software developer making $74,000 a year, living in a modest apartment, driving an old Toyota. Privately I was Jordan Chen, trustee of a $4.7 million real estate portfolio generating $267,000 annually. I hired a professional property management company, Lone Star Property Group, that my family had never heard of. They handled everything: tenant screening, maintenance, rent collection, renovations. Property number 2 got its new roof, $47,000. Property number 3 got a new property manager. Income increased 28%. Property number 7 was renovated and released. Income increased 41%. The portfolio value grew from $4.7 million in 2018 to $5.8 million by 2023. Annual income increased from $267,000 to $342,000. And every month, the rent deposits hit my business account automatically. Meanwhile, Marcus continued assuming everything would eventually be his. Can't wait to upgrade some of these properties, he'd say at family dinners. Grandpa's been letting them languish. I'm going to modernize everything once I take over. I'd take a sip of water and say nothing. Dad would nod approvingly. That's good vision, Marcus. Grandpa would smile slightly and change the subject. Only Dad knew the truth and Grandpa had sworn him to secrecy. I told Marcus's father, Grandpa explained to me in 2020. He needs to know so he can plan accordingly. But he agreed not to tell Marcus. Let Marcus show us who he really is when he thinks everything is guaranteed. And Marcus showed us exactly who he was. As Grandpa's health declined between 2020 and 2023, Marcus's behavior changed. He started pressuring Grandpa to update his estate plan. You should formalize everything, Marcus would say during visits. Make sure there's no ambiguity about who gets what. It's already handled, Grandpa would reply. But is it in writing? Is it official? Because I want to make sure the properties transfer smoothly. I've already been researching refinancing options. We could pull out equity for improvements. He wanted to take loans against properties he didn't own. Then in late 2021 something worse happened. Grandpa had given Marcus access to the business accounts for training purposes. Marcus was supposed to be learning financial management. Instead, Marcus was padding his expense reports. A $400 client dinner became $620 with inflated numbers. A $2,100 business trip became $3,800 with fake hotel charges. Mileage reimbursements for trips that never happened. Over 18 months, Marcus had diverted $34,000 from company accounts into his personal pocket. Grandpa discovered it during a routine audit in March 2023. He called me to his house, not the office, his house, and showed me the forensic accounting report. Your brother is embezzling from the family business, Grandpa said, his voice tired and sad. Small amounts. Always below the reporting threshold. But consistent. Does Dad know? I told him yesterday. He cried. I looked at the report. Transaction after transaction. All carefully structured to avoid detection. All theft. What are you going to do? Nothing while I'm alive, Grandpa said. I'm 87 years old, Jordan. I don't have the energy for a family civil war. But I want you to know, I want you to understand, that I made the right decision in 2018. Marcus doesn't know you know? No. And he won't. Not from me. Grandpa took my hand. But when I'm gone, when he tries to claim everything, I want you to have this ammunition. Because men like Marcus, men who believe they deserve everything, need to be taught that actions have consequences. Grandpa died 4 months later in July 2023. At his funeral, Marcus cried beautifully. I'm going to make you proud, Grandpa, he said at the graveside. I'm going to take everything you built and make it even greater. I said nothing, because I knew what was coming. The will reading was scheduled for 3 weeks after the funeral. August 15, 2023. 2 p.m. Lawrence Kim's office. The whole family attended. Dad, Mom, Marcus, me, Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, Aunt Grace. 7 of us crowded into Mr. Kim's conference room. Marcus wore his most expensive suit, dark navy, tailored perfectly. He sat at the head of the table like he was already in charge. I wore khakis and a button-down shirt. I sat near the back. Mr. Kim opened the will document. The last will and testament of Li Wei-Chin, he began. He read through the preliminaries. Small bequests to various relatives. $10,000 to Aunt Linda. $10,000 to Uncle Robert. $10,000 to Aunt Grace. Then he reached the major assets. To my son, David Chen, I leave Chen Import and Distribution Incorporated, along with all associated business assets, inventory, and intellectual property. May he continue to run it with the integrity he has always shown. Dad nodded, tears in his eyes. Marcus smiled, because he assumed the business would eventually be his. Regarding my real estate holdings, Mr. Kim continued, no disposition is made in this will, as those assets were transferred to an irrevocable trust in March 2018. The room went silent. What trust? Marcus asked. Mr. Kim looked up. The Chin Family Property Trust. All 8 properties were transferred on March 22, 2018. Transferred to who? Aunt Linda asked. The trust documents are confidential, Mr. Kim said. But the trustee is. I'm the eldest. I get everything, Marcus declared, standing up abruptly. The 8 Texas properties, the business, all of it. My parents smiled nervously. My aunts cheered uncertainly. Marcus turned to Dad. Right. That's how it works. Eldest son inherits everything. Dad's face had gone pale. I just smiled and asked, Dad, should I tell them about Grandpa's 2018 transfers or will you? Dad froze as if his heart dropped. My brother screamed, No. What? The conference room exploded into chaos. What 2018 transfers? Marcus demanded. What is he talking about? Aunt Linda asked. David. Mom whispered to Dad. What's going on? Dad couldn't speak. He just sat there frozen. I stood up calmly. Mr. Kim, would you like to explain or should I? Mr. Kim pulled out another folder. In March 2018, Li Wei-Chen established the Chen Family Property Trust. All 8 real estate properties transferred to the trust on March 22, 2018. The trust is irrevocable. It cannot be changed or dissolved. Who's the trustee? Marcus demanded. Jordan Chen, Mr. Kim said. Your brother. He's been the sole trustee and beneficiary for 5 years and 4 months. Aunt Linda gasped. Uncle Robert's mouth fell open. Marcus's face went from confused to red to purple. That's impossible, he said. Grandpa wouldn't. I'm the eldest, I work at the company. You work at a company worth $3 million, I said quietly. The real estate portfolio is worth $5.8 million. $5.8 million? Marcus shouted. Mr. Kim laid 8 documents on the conference table. 8 recorded deeds. Each one stamped with the county recorder's seal. Each one transferring a property to the Chen Family Property Trust. Each one dated March 22, 2018. Property 1. Chen Import Headquarters, Dallas, transferred to Chen Family Property Trust. Property 2. 4-unit building, Austin, transferred to Chen Family Property Trust. Property 3. 6-unit building, Houston, transferred to Chen Family Property Trust. Marcus grabbed one of the deeds with shaking hands. This says Jordan Chen, trustee. This says I don't own anything. Correct, Mr. Kim confirmed. You receive nothing from the real estate holdings. They've been in your brother's name for over 5 years. But Dad gets the business, Marcus said desperately, turning to our father. Which means I get the business eventually. Right, Dad? Dad finally found his voice. The business is worth maybe $2.8 million, Marcus. And it's struggling. Online retail is killing us. We'll be lucky if it's still viable in 5 years. So you're saying? Marcus's voice cracked. You're saying Jordan gets $5.8 million in paid-off properties generating income, and I get a dying business. You get to help run a dying business, I corrected softly. Dad owns it. Not you. The truth landed like a bomb. Aunt Linda spoke first. Jordan, you've owned these properties for 5 years. Yes. You've been managing them? Collecting rent. Through a property management company, yes. How much rent? Currently $342,000 annually, I said. Up from $267,000 in 2018. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the table but didn't break, just rolled to the edge. $342,000 a year, she whispered. You've been collecting that for 5 years? Yes. While living in that apartment, driving that Toyota, working your little software job. My little software job pays me $94,000 annually, I said. Plus I own 15% of the company I work for, which is worth about $400,000. But yes, I chose to live modestly. Marcus had sat back down. His face had gone from purple to gray. Why? He whispered. Why would Grandpa do this? Because Grandpa understood something you never did, I said. Being eldest doesn't mean you deserve everything. It means you had the opportunity to prove yourself first. And you failed. I worked at the company for 10 years. You showed up at the company for 10 years, I corrected. You took clients to expensive lunches. You talked about strategic synergies. You padded your expense reports and embezzled $34,000. The room went completely silent. That's a lie, Marcus said, but his voice had no conviction. I pulled out my own folder. The forensic accounting report Grandpa had shown me in March 2023. March 2021 through September 2022, I said, opening the report. 18 months of inflated expense reports and fake charges. I laid out the evidence page by page. Expense report number 1847. Client dinner claimed as $620. Actual receipt $380. Difference $240 diverted to personal credit card. Expense report number 1923. Business trip claimed as $3,800. Actual costs $2,100. Difference $1,700 diverted to personal account. Mileage report number 445. 847 miles claimed. GPS data 214 miles driven. Difference $380 in fraudulent reimbursement. 28 pages of theft. Total embezzled from Chen Import and Distribution $34,600, I said. All during Grandpa's final years. All while you were promising to make him proud. Marcus's face had gone white. I was going to pay it back. Were you? I asked. Or were you going to inherit the business and bury the evidence? Mom started crying. Real tears, not the composed grief from the funeral. Marcus, how could you? She whispered. The business was doing fine. Marcus shouted. The money wasn't needed. I had expenses. The BMW payment, the condo mortgage. So you stole from your dying grandfather to maintain your lifestyle, I said. And you thought being eldest meant you deserved everything anyway. Dad's voice was hollow. Li Wei knew. He found out in March. He showed me the audit report. That's when I understood why he'd transferred the properties to you. You knew. Marcus turned on Dad. You knew he was cutting me out and you said nothing? He wasn't cutting you out, Dad said tiredly. He was protecting the family assets from someone who'd proven himself untrustworthy. Aunt Linda cleared her throat. So Jordan owns all 8 properties? Completely. Yes, Mr. Kim confirmed. The trust dissolved upon Li Wei Chen's death. Jordan now owns all 8 properties outright, free and clear. And the business goes to David? Correct. So Marcus gets nothing? Uncle Robert asked. Marcus gets the opportunity to prove himself in the business his father now owns, Mr. Kim said. If he can be trusted. Everyone looked at Marcus. He sat there stunned, his perfect suit suddenly looking like a costume. This isn't fair, Marcus finally said. His voice was small, broken. I'm the eldest. I followed all the rules. I graduated from UT. I worked at the company. I did everything right. You did everything that looked right, I corrected. There's a difference. You went to community college. Marcus shouted, anger flashing. You work at some no-name tech company. You drive a piece of junk car. You live in a crappy apartment. Why do you deserve millions while I get nothing? Because I earned Grandpa's trust, I said simply. Every Saturday for 8 years I met with him. I learned about property management, cash flow analysis, tenant relations, maintenance schedules. I learned how to build wealth, not just spend money. I was working at the company. You were playing executive, I interrupted. Big lunches, fancy suits, talking about vision and strategy while embezzling from the accounts. Grandpa saw exactly who you were. Marcus turned to Mom. Say something. Tell him this isn't right. Mom wiped her eyes. Marcus, you stole from your grandfather. How is Jordan supposed to ignore that? It was going to be my business anyway. I was going to inherit it. No, you weren't, Dad said quietly. Even before Grandpa transferred the properties, he'd decided the business would come to me, not you. He'd seen your expense reports. He'd watched how you treated employees. He knew you weren't ready. So what am I supposed to do now? Marcus demanded. Jordan gets $5.8 million and I get what? A job working for my father. You get the same opportunity Grandpa gave me, I said. The chance to prove yourself. To build something real instead of performing success. Performing success? I graduated from UT. I worked my way up. You graduated from UT on Grandpa's money, I corrected. You got a job at the family company through nepotism. You drive a BMW you can't afford. You live in a condo with a mortgage you can barely make. Everything you have is borrowed money, borrowed authority, borrowed respect. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Aunt Grace, who'd been silent this whole time, spoke up. What happens now with the embezzlement? Are you pressing charges, Jordan? All eyes turned to me. I looked at Marcus. My brother. The golden child. The heir apparent who'd stolen from our dying grandfather. Here's what's going to happen, I said carefully. Marcus will sign a confession acknowledging the embezzlement. That confession stays with Mr. Kim. If Marcus ever challenges the trust transfer, claims he was cheated, or spreads lies about how Grandpa betrayed him, that confession goes to the district attorney. Jordan, Marcus started. I'm not finished, I said firmly. Second, Marcus will cease all claims to any portion of the real estate. No more talking about our family properties or when I inherit. Those properties are mine. Period. Marcus nodded frantically. Yes. Done. Third, Marcus will repay the $34,600 he embezzled. Not to me, to the business. Dad will set up a payment plan. Every dollar gets paid back. Dad nodded slowly. We can do monthly payments. $500 a month for 70 months. Almost 6 years of payments, I said. That seems appropriate for 18 months of theft. Marcus's shoulders slumped. And fourth, I said, turning to my parents, everyone in this family needs to understand something. I didn't steal Marcus's inheritance. Grandpa never intended for Marcus to get the properties. He made his decision in 2018 based on 5 years of watching both of us. He chose correctly. Jordan, we never thought, Mom started. Yes, you did, I interrupted gently. You absolutely thought Marcus would inherit everything because he's eldest. Because he went to the right school. Because he looked the part. But Grandpa built his empire by understanding the difference between performance and substance. He taught me that difference. Marcus never learned it. The room was silent. Mr. Kim pulled out a document. I need Marcus to sign the confession now. For the record. Marcus looked at Dad desperately. Do I have a choice? No, Dad said quietly. You sign it or Jordan presses charges. And trust me, son, you don't want to face criminal charges for elder financial abuse. Not in Texas. Marcus took the pen with a shaking hand. He signed his name. Mr. Kim notarized it and filed it in his safe. This meeting is concluded, Mr. Kim said. Jordan, I'll send you the final trust dissolution documents within the week. You'll own all 8 properties outright. I stood up, gathering my folder. Wait, Marcus said. What am I supposed to tell people? My friends? My girlfriend? Everyone thinks I'm inheriting everything. Tell them the truth, I said. Or don't. That's not my problem. Jordan, please. Please what, Marcus? Please pretend Grandpa didn't see who you really are? Please give you millions of dollars you didn't earn? Please ignore the fact that you stole from a dying old man. Marcus had no answer. I walked to the door. Oh, and Marcus? I turned back. The apartment I live in. I own it. Bought it in 2019 for $285,000 cash. The piece of junk Toyota? Paid off in 2017. The no-name tech company? I own 15% of it and we're valued at $2.7 million. I have been building real wealth while you've been building a facade. I left him sitting there with the ruins of his assumptions. Marcus signed the confession. The payments began, $500 monthly to repay the embezzlement. But the family dynamics shattered completely. Marcus stopped coming to family dinners. When he did show up, he couldn't make eye contact with anyone. His girlfriend left him 3 weeks after the will reading. Turns out she'd been dating the heir to a multi-million-dollar real estate empire, not the guy who embezzled from his grandfather. His friends stopped calling. Or maybe he stopped calling them. Hard to maintain friendships built on fake success. Mom tried to play peacemaker. She called me weekly begging for family unity. He's your brother, she'd say. He's a thief, I'd reply. Can't you just give him something? One property. Help him save face. No. Jordan, please. Mom, Grandpa spent 5 years teaching me about wealth, responsibility, and character. Marcus spent 10 years proving he had none of those things. I'm not giving away what Grandpa trusted me with just to make Marcus feel better about his failures. She stopped calling after that. Dad was different. He called me one night 3 months after the will reading. Your grandfather was right, he said. I see it now. Marcus can't run the business. He doesn't understand margins, expenses, cash flow. He thinks revenue equals profit. What are you going to do? I'm going to sell Chen Import, Dad said quietly. I've got an offer for $2.4 million. I'll take it, retire, and let Marcus figure out his own path. And Marcus will get nothing from the sale. That money is mine. My retirement, your mother's security. Marcus will have to build his own life. Dad sold the business 4 months later for $2.4 million. Marcus went to work for a logistics company making $67,000 annually. He moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. He sold the BMW and bought a used Honda. For the first time in his life, Marcus was building something on his own merit. Meanwhile, I continued managing the 8 properties. Property values increased from $5.8 million to $6.4 million by 2024. Annual rental income reached $385,000. I sold property number 5, the Fort Worth duplex, for $520,000 and used the proceeds to buy a small office building in Austin for $680,000. Better location, higher cap rate, longer-term tenant. The portfolio became 9 properties worth $6.9 million. I started a small investment fund with friends from my tech company. We bought distressed properties, renovated them, and either rented or flipped them. First year return, 23%. Second year return, 31%. My personal net worth crossed $8 million in 2025. I was 33 years old. And I did exactly what Grandpa had taught me. I built in silence. No one at my tech job knew I was a multimillionaire. No one in my apartment building knew I owned real estate across Texas. No one at the coffee shop where I got my morning latte knew I cleared $385,000 annually in passive income. Being underestimated remained the most powerful position there was. In November 2025, 2 years after the will reading, I received a letter. Marcus's handwriting. Dallas postmark. I almost threw it away. But something made me open it. Jordan, it began. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm writing because my therapist said I need to acknowledge what I did without making excuses. I stole from Grandpa. I spent 10 years assuming I deserved everything while doing nothing to earn it. I looked down on you for not following the right path while I was following a path that led nowhere. Grandpa saw that. Dad saw it. Even Mom probably saw it, but she wanted to believe I was special because I was eldest. I wasn't special. I was entitled. I've spent 2 years working a normal job, paying back the money I stole, living in a normal apartment. And you know what's strange? I'm starting to understand what Grandpa was trying to teach us. Wealth isn't about looking successful. It's about being sustainable. You were building sustainability while I was building a facade. I'm not going to be a millionaire. I'm probably not going to own property for a decade. But I'm finally building something real. Something I actually earned. I don't expect us to be close again. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand why Grandpa chose you. You weren't the eldest. But you were the worthy one. Marcus. I read the letter twice. Then I did something Grandpa would have been proud of. I wrote back. Marcus, I wrote. You're right. You don't deserve forgiveness and I'm not offering it. What you did was unforgivable, stealing from a dying man who loved you. But I believe you're finally learning what Grandpa tried to teach both of us. Position and appearance mean nothing without character. Here's what I've learned from Grandpa's $5.8 million lesson. Being eldest gave you first opportunity. But opportunity without merit is just wasted potential. You had every advantage. The family business, Dad's mentorship, the assumption of inheritance. I had every Saturday morning with Grandpa learning about cap rates and property management. You thought you were building a career. I was building wealth. You thought appearance mattered. I learned that results matter. You thought being eldest meant deserving everything. I learned that earning trust means deserving anything. Grandpa's real gift wasn't the properties. It was the education. He spent 8 years teaching me that wealth is built in silence, protected by strategy, and transferred to those who understand its weight. You're working at a logistics company making $67,000. That's not punishment, it's opportunity. For the first time in your life, you're building something that's actually yours. Keep building, Marcus. Not for Mom's approval. Not to compete with me. For yourself. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, when you've actually become the man you were pretending to be, we can have coffee and talk about what we built instead of what we thought we deserved. Jordan. I mailed the letter. I don't know if Marcus and I will ever rebuild our relationship. Probably not. Some damage is too deep. But I'd learned the most important lesson from Grandpa's trust. The best inheritance isn't money. It's the wisdom to know your worth before circumstances force you to prove it. And the character to build something real instead of performing success. It's been 3 years since that while reading in Lawrence Kim's conference room. The 9 properties are now worth $7.8 million. Annual income, $438,000. My investment fund has grown to $12 million under management. Returns average 27% annually. My tech company stake is now worth $740,000. My personal net worth is $11.3 million. I'm 34 years old. Every Saturday morning, I visit Grandpa's grave in the cemetery outside Houston. I bring tea in a thermos, the same kind we used to drink in his warehouse office. The properties are doing well, I told his headstone last Saturday. Property number 7 needed a new commercial tenant. I found a dental practice willing to sign a 7-year lease. 22% above previous rent. The wind rustled through the oak trees. Marcus is still paying back the embezzlement. 24 months down, 46 to go. Dad says he's doing better, showing up on time, working harder, complaining less. I poured tea into the small cup I kept at the grave. You were right about everything, I continued. About building in silence. About earning trust before claiming power. About understanding that being eldest means nothing if you don't have character. A family was visiting a grave 3 rows over. A father and 2 sons, maybe 19 and 22. The father was explaining something about property taxes and rental income. The eldest son looked bored, checking his phone. The younger son was taking notes. I smiled. Some lessons people learn early. And some people never learn at all. I finished my tea and stood up. Thank you, Grandpa, I whispered. For seeing who I was when everyone else was seeing who I wasn't. For teaching me that wealth is built in silence. For trusting me with your legacy. I walked back to my car. Upgraded to a 2024 Honda Accord, still modest, still understated. My phone buzzed. A text from my property manager. Tenant for property number 3 renewed lease. 2-year term. Rent increase approved. I replied, excellent. Send updated cash flow projection. And drove home to my apartment. The apartment I owned outright in a building no one knew I'd bought in 2019. Where I was just Jordan Chen. Building wealth in silence. Living proof of Grandpa's wisdom. Earning everything. Deserving nothing. Receiving everything anyway. Exactly as it should be.